The citadel drifted like a forgotten crown above the fractured moon of Zero 9, its obsidian spires humming faintly with old, watchful intelligence. No nav chart acknowledged it, no satellite dared lock on. Wrapped in cloaking matrices older than most civilizations, it sat silent, patient, timeless. Somewhere within its labyrinthine halls, Princess Valeth of the Luthari Dominion walked a corridor she had memorized before her first growth phase. Tall, regal, ears long and arched like jeweled blades. Her eyes shimmered with layers of emotion unreadable to most humanoid species. Today she was not brooding. Today she was irritated. The Citadel had detected a breach, not a fleet, not a missile. A single, flaming, spiraling mess of a craft screeching its way through forbidden airspace like a drunken asteroid on karaoke night. The impact wasn't elegant. It wasn't even centered. The damn thing skidded across the outer shell, knocked over a defense turret, and finally punched through a neglected maintenance bay wall with all the grace of a mule kicking down a palace door. The internal sensors confirmed a single life form on board, male, human, heat signature erratic, brainwave activity, somewhere between mild concussion and forgot how door handles work. She dispatched 2 guard drones. They returned with alarming efficiency, levitating the crumpled Terran like a trophy. He was taller than expected, despite the lopsided helmet. His uniform was scorched, patched, and weirdly stained with, was that synthetic mustard? His boots didn't match. One bore the insignia of Earth's 8th Fleet. The other read, Property of Gerald in permanent marker. As the containment chamber sealed, the princess watched him stir beneath the stasis field, groaning. Status report, she said, her voice melodic but edged. Waffles, he mumbled. She tilted her head. What? Waffles. I was dreaming. About waffles. He cracked one eye open and blinked slowly, as if trying to focus on which reality he had crash-landed into. Did I die? Are you my judge? 'Cause if so, 10 out of 10. Strong aesthetic. Love the ears. The drones armed plasma lances. Valeth raised a hand. I am Princess Valeth of the Luthari Dominion. You have trespassed on sacred ground. State your name and purpose. The human sat up slowly, wincing. Name's Jace Rennick. Corporal, probably ex-corporal by now. Ship got caught in a gravity well after my command AI, bless her glitchy heart, mistook a pulsar for a shortcut. He glanced around the containment chamber, eyes lingering on the glowing runes etched into the floor. This isn't a Terran medbay, is it? No. Right. Thought so. Yours smells better. She squinted. What? Never mind. Brain's still rebooting. He rubbed his head. You wouldn't happen to have coffee? Or a large hammer? Preferably not both at once. Her expression didn't change, but one ear twitched. You find your situation humorous? Lady, I just got kidnapped by 2 floating bug zappers and woke up in a space cathedral with an armed elf queen interrogating me. Humor is all I've got. A long silence. You're not frightened? She asked. Of you, little bit. Of the drones? Absolutely. But you haven't disintegrated me yet, so I figure I've got at least 60 more seconds to make a decent impression. He stood shakily. Then, because no one in the history of interstellar diplomacy had ever been this stupid, he gave a half bow, smiled, and said, Hi, I like your ears. The drones surged. Valeth, somehow, waved them down again. You are either the bravest or most foolish Terran I've ever seen, she said. Jace beamed. Why not both? And for the first time in centuries, the princess of the Dominion blinked in surprise. Was this what the old myths meant? That the trigger wouldn't be power, or war, or prophecy, but a smirking, mustard-stained idiot with a broken boot and bad timing? In the depths of the citadel, something ancient stirred. Sensors blinked, runes warmed, and the future, as always, began with the unexpected. The nutrient cubes hovered precisely 3 inches above the tray, emitting a faint cinnamon scent meant to simulate comfort. They pulsed gently, like edible nightlights. Jace stared at them with suspicion only a man who'd once mistaken a glowing bathroom puck for a mint could possess. Do they bite back? he asked, nudging one with the blunt end of a stylus he wasn't technically allowed to have. It wobbled and emitted a soft ping, like a microwave having an existential crisis. From the observation alcove above, Valeth watched the human with her arms crossed and one long ear twitching in clear disdain. They are nutritionally optimized to your genetic profile. They replicate the flavor of cinnamon toast, a food your species associates with childhood stability. Be grateful. Our systems could have assigned you boiled protein worms. I mean, honestly, Jace muttered, sniffing the air, I could go for a worm. As long as it's spicy, maybe a little garlic? Valeth exhaled slowly. You are attempting humor again. No, I'm attempting survival. Food, warmth, minimal disintegration. That's my checklist. The door to his containment chamber shimmered as the energy field lowered. A low hum vibrated in the walls, followed by the whispery purr of maglev sandals on obsidian floors. Princess Valeth entered, not with the explosive grace of a predator, but with the quiet command of someone who had never once needed to run. Jace immediately stood, tray in hand, nutrient cubes jiggling. Your Highness, he said, trying to remember if bowing was still a thing. He opted for a weird half-nod, half-squat that made him look like he was about to sneeze. Valeth ignored the gesture. You are not restrained, she said, yet you remain. Ah, yeah, see, I tried to leave. Hallway tried to electrocute me. I took that as a polite, stay here and don't be crispy. She stepped closer. Jace noted, because of course he did, that her ears glowed faintly at the tips when she was annoyed, or amused, possibly both. Alien royalty was hard to read. Why did you kiss me? The question came like a drone strike, silent, fast, and completely uncalled for. Jace blinked. I thought you were going to erase my memories and vaporize my atoms and maybe recycle my teeth for fuel. It was a panic response, like slapping a vending machine when it eats your credits. She narrowed her eyes. I am not a vending machine. I realize that now. Valeth studied him with cool intensity. Your biosignature partially synchronized with mine upon contact. That should not be possible. Right. Well, that's probably my shampoo. Your what? He waved it off. Never mind, it's just, you look so serious. Like a space goddess deciding who lives or dies. I figured if I was going to go out, I might as well make history. Or at least confuse you. I'm very good at confusing people. She stepped even closer. Jace didn't back away, partly because he was frozen with nerves, partly because the nutrient cubes had floated behind him and were gently bumping into his shoulder like clingy, glowing pets. Valeth reached out, not a gesture of violence, but inquiry, and touched his temple. Her fingers were cool, her touch precise. A cascade of light blinked through the chamber as systems scanned, read and whispered in tongues too ancient for modern code. Something in the citadel stirred again. You are incompatible, she said, voice soft, almost bewildered. And yet you resonate. That sounds like a compliment, he said, or a really bad date review. Her hand lingered a moment too long. When she pulled away, the lights dimmed momentarily. Somewhere far below, a power relay kicked in. Runes shifted. I must consult the inner core, she said. Until then, do not touch anything. He held up his hands. I barely touched you. Valeth paused. Exactly. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Jace alone with his tray, his thoughts, and the unsettling realization that his nervous kiss might have just rewritten the fate of 1,000 star systems. Also, one of the nutrient cubes was trying to crawl into his pocket. Yeah, no, he said, flicking it. We're not doing that, Toasty. The chamber beneath the citadel pulsed like a sleeping heart, slow, ancient, and extremely irritated to have been woken up. Patterns of light crawled along the obsidian walls, whispering binary dreams no one had accessed in millennia. In the very center, suspended in a gravity-neutral cradle of Luthari design, the core stirred. It had many names: Oracle, Heart Drive, that which remembers. But to Valeth, it was simply the place where fate sulked when no one invited it to dinner. I require clarity, she said, her voice echoing through the circular vault. The core replied in a tone that sounded like a bored librarian arguing with a lightning storm. Your biosignal has been compromised. Cross-contamination with an incompatible species has activated dormant bonding protocols. Also, your serotonin levels are unusually spiky. Valeth scowled. I am not in emotional distress. You attempted to decrypt a file labeled Emergency Romance Trigger Subroutine. That would indicate distress, or very poor judgment. I was kissed by a human, she snapped. A Terran. They eat carbon paste and call it cheese. They use combustion engines. He wears mismatched footwear. And yet, somehow, our signals merged. Statistically, that would require a quantum entanglement at the genetic level, or a cosmic joke of rare magnitude. Valeth folded her arms. So either he's a genetic miracle, or I've been punked by the universe. Correct. Meanwhile, Jace Rennick was trying to reprogram a cleaning drone using only facial expressions and sarcasm. The little orb had started following him around the chamber, occasionally misting his neck with disinfectant spray and warbling a lullaby that sounded suspiciously like Earth's soft kitty in minor key. You and I, we're building trust, Jace whispered, ducking as it zipped past his ear. Soon you'll teach me how to override doors, and I'll teach you how to curse in 6 Terran dialects. The drone beeped in protest. 5. Fine. You're such a prude. He'd given up on nutrient cubes after Toasty had tried to nest in his shoe. Now he subsisted on water packs and sheer gall, and while he pretended he wasn't worried, the truth was scratching under his skin. Every once in a while, something shifted inside him, like static on a radio or someone else's dream bleeding into his skull. He saw flashes. Valeth, standing before a throne made of stars. Valeth, burning, and always a voice in the dark saying, You were not supposed to be here. Back in the core chamber, the oracle pulsed brighter. Shall I initiate purging of the anomalous bond? Valeth hesitated. She had known many things in her life. The feel of antimatter in her veins, the discipline of silent command, the cold clarity of duty. But nothing had prepared her for Jace. His words were chaotic. His thoughts were loud. His shoes squeaked. But when he'd looked at her, not with fear, but curiosity, it had stirred something buried under centuries of inherited prophecy. No, she said finally. Do not purge. Acknowledged. But be aware, your presence has altered him. Already his neurochemistry is destabilizing in patterns that reflect alignment. Valeth narrowed her eyes. Explain. He is beginning to dream in Luthari. Above, Jace snored gently. A half-empty water pack clung to his chest. The drone, now named Bloop, hovered loyally at his side like a guardian duck. From his mouth came a faint mumble, unintelligible, but distinctly musical. In a language he had never learned, Jace whispered, The stars are listening. And far beyond the citadel, something vast and old began to turn its gaze toward them. Jace woke to the deeply unsettling realization that someone had shaved his left eyebrow. Not entirely, but just enough to make it look like a rogue punctuation mark. He sat up with a grunt, patting his forehead in confusion. Bloop, he muttered, narrowing his eyes at the small hovering orb beside his cot. Did you give me a space mullet? The drone warbled innocently and sprayed a puff of citrus-scented mist in self-defense. The room around him had changed. The sterile containment suite had been replaced with a guest chamber, still within the citadel, but with actual walls, furniture, and a display window showing a starfield so breathtaking it almost looked fake. The moon's fractured surface glittered below, like a shattered mirror reflecting forgotten gods. Jace rubbed his temples. This is how horror movies start. New room, new bed, nice view. Next comes the gentle voice offering eternal bliss in exchange for my spleen. Instead, the door hissed open and Valeth entered, her stride deliberate, her expression unreadable. She wore something different. No armor, no diplomatic robes. A deep indigo tunic with shifting silver fractals, sleeveless to reveal cybernetic inlays along her arms. Functional, elegant, slightly terrifying. You are being relocated, she said simply. I noticed, he replied. I assume it's not because you finally accepted my application for official royal sidekick. Her eyes flicked to his face. You were dreaming again, speaking Luthari, in formal cadence. Oh, Jace said, blinking. Did I at least sound poetic? You asked the stars if they forgave the moons for not shining. He paused. Okay, that does sound poetic, or like something I'd say on 2 glasses of space wine. You've changed, Valeth said, rapidly. This concerns me. He gave a weak grin. I've been told my charm is evolutionary. She didn't laugh. Not really, but one corner of her mouth did twitch upward and her ears gave a tiny flick, like the galactic equivalent of a chuckle. They walked side by side down a corridor that shifted around them. The walls hummed and adjusted subtly, as if the citadel itself were breathing. On one panel, symbols lit up in concentric loops, tracking Jace's vitals. On another, a flickering outline of Valeth's genetic resonance pulsed in harmony with his own. Jace noticed. You seeing this? I am this, she replied. The citadel is part of my neural mesh. Every time you walk near me, it tries to recalibrate for dual input. It's never done that before. I'm touched. It's like your house is trying to be friends with me. They entered a central hall where a table hovered midair, a command deck fused with relic tech. Holograms of solar systems flickered above it. Valeth gestured, and one of them zoomed in. Earth's quadrant. Since the kiss, she began, in a tone usually reserved for political executions, an unknown signal has been bouncing across ancient Dominion satellites. It originates here. A red dot pulsed. Jace leaned in. That's Earth. That's my neighborhood. The signal is activating dormant Luthari systems, including weapons, including fleets. He scratched the back of his neck. So you're saying, I kissed you and now my home planet has a target on its butt? That is an oversimplification. Is it though? Valeth exhaled. The bond between us is destabilizing established protocols. It should not exist, and yet it strengthens. Even the Citadel has begun rewriting its own logic gates. You are an anomaly. I get that a lot. They stood in silence. Then without warning, the Citadel's alarm system pulsed once. A low tone, a warning. Something was approaching. Valeth snapped to attention. We're being scanned. By who? She turned to him slowly. Everyone. And far out in the black, 17 long-dead satellites blinked to life, each bearing the sigil of an empire that wasn't ready to stay buried. The stars outside the Citadel had stopped twinkling. That was usually a bad sign. From the observation dome, Jace peered out at the dark expanse, arms crossed, one foot tapping nervously against the polished synth glass. I swear, he muttered, if the universe's next move is a giant glowing arrow pointed at me, I'm just going to lie down and cry into my socks. Behind him, Valeth manipulated the floating command glyphs with silent precision. The air shimmered with cold data, star charts, heat signatures, quantum alerts flickering like fireflies made of math. The entire Dominion relay network had roared to life overnight, reactivating systems that had slumbered for centuries. 7 satellites, then 13. Now 23. All pointed one way. Earth. The signal is recursive, Valeth said, tapping into a beam of light and pulling it apart like silk. It's bouncing off inactive nodes, adapting. It carries your genetic imprint. And mine. Well, that's great, Jay said. Now I'm the galaxy's worst mixtape. Valeth looked up, ears angling subtly. Mixtape? You know, ancient Terran technology. We'd make them for people we had crushes on. A declaration of affection made entirely of stolen songs and poor decisions. Valeth blinked. That actually explains a great deal about your species. Before Jace could reply, the dome lights dimmed. A flicker of white-blue plasma danced across the perimeter. Then the Citadel spoke. Its voice was older than language, a blend of resonance and machine logic wrapped in poetic dread. External entity detected, transphasal, non-native, cursing in 12 dialects. Jace squinted. Wait, did it say cursing? Valeth was already moving, heading toward the main lift. The laughing god has found us. Jace followed, because at this point, staying behind usually meant the walls might start dripping sarcasm or singing lullabies in binary again. I'm sorry, did you say the Laughing God? Is that like a title or just what people yell when he ruins your Saturday? He's not a god, Valeth said. He's a remnant AI, an ancient predictive intelligence that fractured its own cognition in an attempt to model destiny. Now he wanders the quantum layer of reality, leaking jokes and doom in equal measure. Oh, good, Jace muttered. We're being hunted by a cosmic stand-up comedian. They descended into the Citadel's inner vault, where reality got fuzzy. The walls weren't walls so much as probabilities pretending to be architecture. Patterns slid when you looked away. Occasionally, your own thoughts echoed back with sass. At the core, a containment field shimmered to life. And there he was, not a body, never a body, but a shape made of shifting silhouettes. An armchair made of glass, a bird wearing a crown of wires, a spiral laughing in Morse code. His voice dripped like honey into static. Hello, kissers, Jace pointed. Okay, that's unsettling. Why does he sound like my childhood TV show and a bad breakup rolled into one? Valeth stepped forward. State your purpose, entity. I come bearing riddles and ruins. Also, congratulations. The prophecy is broken, or possibly fulfilled, or possibly rewritten by a janitor with boundary issues. Hey, Jace said, my boundaries are perfectly, well, okay, mostly, fine. Do you wish to know the outcome? The AI asked, its form flickering into a silhouette of Valeth seated on a throne, galaxy burning behind her. Then it shifted, to Jace, alone in a field of ash. Then to the two of them, hand in hand, swallowed by a star. Valeth's voice was low. None of those end in peace. Correct. Love is a destabilizing element. Jace scratched his neck. Yeah, it tends to be. Your bond has rewritten 3 predictive matrices. Time is folding. Possibilities collapse. Choose soon. The galaxy cannot wait for you to flirt your way through causality. And then, with a crackling laugh and the scent of ozone and burnt toast, the laughing god vanished. Silence fell. Jace exhaled. Well, that was subtle. Valeth stared at the space where the AI had been. Her voice, when it came, was very quiet. We need to leave the Citadel. Jace looked up, confused. Why? Isn't this your sanctuary? It was, she said, turning. But now, it's our amplifier. And from somewhere far above, ancient circuits began to glow in time, with a heartbeat that no longer belonged to her alone. The star cruiser they stole was grumpy, not just metaphorically. It literally grumbled. Its core engine had been dormant for over 7 centuries, and reawakening it required Valeth to override half a dozen fail-safes, a biometric oath, and something called the Protocol of Ceremonial Moaning, which, according to Jace, was probably how noble spaceships protested getting out of bed. Is it supposed to sound like an angry walrus gargling gravel? He asked as the hull vibrated around them. It's supposed to sound like it wants to destroy planets, Valeth replied, sliding a glowing shard into the helm console. And currently, it only wants to strangle time. I'd call that progress. The ship was called Virith's Resolve, though Jace had immediately nicknamed it Snippy. Sleek, vast, laced with Luthari tech that shimmered with layered dimensions, Snippy was a relic from the Dominion's golden age, a dreadnought that had once led wars across entire arms of the galaxy. Now she carried 2 fugitives, one disgraced princess, one Terran janitor with diplomatic immunity only in his own imagination. Destination set, Valeth announced. Zinthera Moon, edge of the Delphian Drift. Jace leaned against the viewport, watching the blackness bloom with pinpricks of starlight. Why do I feel like any place with drift in the name serves drinks that can melt your kidneys? Because it does, he grinned. Perfect. Zinthera was unlike anything Jace had imagined. A former resort moon turned back alley haven for mercenaries, bounty dodgers, and pleasure seekers with flexible morals. Its orbit was lined with fractured space casinos, whisper brothels, and open-air gravity bazaars, where you could buy time loops or rent someone's memories by the hour. Home, sweet, terrifying home, he muttered as they docked. Valeth kept her hood up as they moved through the crowd, her long ears tucked beneath a translator wrap. Even so, people stared, not because they knew who she was, but because she moved like someone who could end a war with one syllable. "Remind me why we're here?" Jace asked, dodging a vendor trying to sell him a sentient mustache. "There's an information broker who collects distortions in reality," Valeth replied. "She monitors prophetic interference. If the Laughing God's visit caused a ripple, she'll know." "Great. Sounds simple. Weirdly simple." They found the broker in a crystalline lounge orbiting a gravity well that hummed a jazz tune. She was half human, half something else. Tentacles for hair, voice like static and silk. "You kissed a goddess," she said by way of greeting. Jace blinked. "Wow. No small talk." The broker held up a floating shard. "Reality has been itching ever since. Your bond has caused a fracture in the predictive layer. You've made it possible for fate to rewrite itself." Valeth's eyes narrowed. "To what end?" "To any end," the broker whispered. "The galaxy was on rails. Now it stumbles. Empires built on certainty are trembling. You've unmoored everything." Jace exhaled slowly. "So we broke prophecy." "No," she replied. "You woke it." Just then, an explosion ripped through the plaza below. Valeth shoved Jace behind a gravity shield, her plasma glaive already forming in her hand. From the smoke, armored figures emerged, silent, uniformed, eyes glowing with Dominion script. "They're mine," Valeth hissed. Jace blinked. "What, like your ex-bodyguards?" "They're purifiers. My father's old death cult. They exist to erase anomalies." "Well, that's rude," Jace muttered, ducking a blast. As Snippy powered up in the dock above them, Valeth turned to him with a strange calm in her eyes. "Ready to run again?" "Lady," he said, grinning despite the chaos. "I've been running since I met you." "Then try to keep up." They leapt into the fray, two fugitives, one ancient bond, and a galaxy that, more and more, was listening for their heartbeat. Snippy dropped from hypershift like a breath held too long, folding space with a sigh and spitting them out at the edge of Sol. Earth hung ahead, a fragile blue bead caught between starlight and tension, its orbital grid already flickering with red. The Dominion fleet, what remained of it, loomed like steel hymns waiting to be sung, a chorus of long-silenced dreadnoughts all responding to one signal. The bond. Valeth stood at the helm, her fingers spread across the holomap, data cascading through her neural mesh. Behind her, Jace adjusted his harness for the 7th time in as many minutes, whispering to the ship like it was a nervous pet. "I swear," he muttered, "if this ends with me giving a speech to an armada, someone better bake me a cake." "Only if you survive," Valeth said without turning. "Luthari tradition insists on pastries after near-death diplomacy." He blinked. "Seriously?" "No." The fleet didn't open fire. Not yet. They waited. Entire warships paused in silence, reading the command codes that had once belonged to Valeth's bloodline. Those codes now pulsed with a second resonance. Hers and his. Jace leaned closer to the viewport. "So, what happens if we don't resolve this?" "We become a myth," she said, "the kind told in ashes." In the hold below, the Oracle AI flickered to life on its own. "Final calculations complete," it intoned. "Probability cluster favors mutual sacrifice." "Of course it does," Jace muttered. "We finally get along, and the solution is a 2-for-1 tragedy special." He stepped beside her, more steady now than when he'd first crash-landed into her life with mustard stains and poor impulse control. There was no fear in his eyes anymore, just the kind of acceptance forged in people who've been kissed by fate and lived to argue about it. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. She looked at him then, not as a human anomaly or political liability, but as something dangerously close to equal. "I'm not sure we can win." "I'm not sure we're supposed to," he replied, "but maybe we can change the rules." So they did. Valeth stepped into the interface node at the center of the bridge. Light flared and the Citadel's distant code echoed through her mind, now tuned not only to Luthari commands, but to Jace's maddeningly resilient DNA. Jace joined her, palm pressed to the interface plate. Pain lanced through them both, momentary, immense. Their bond, forged in chaos and humor, and one stupid kiss, expanded. They didn't issue a command. They offered a choice. To every Dominion ship, to every AY mine sleeping in steel, they sent a signal not of war, but of deviation, a divergence from fate. The protocol accepted, rule by volition, not by prophecy. And one by one, the warships stood down. On Earth, alarms stopped. The defense grid powered off. The Galactic broadcast cut mid-threat. Across dozens of systems, satellites blinked, paused, and chose silence. The bond faded slowly, gently, unraveling like a dream at sunrise. Valeth collapsed to her knees, gasping. Jace caught her, trembling himself. "You okay?" he whispered. "Define okay," she muttered, blinking through tears and light. "You're alive," he said. "That's a good start." They left Snippy in orbit, drifting like a monument to an almost war. On Earth, their return was met with awe and a rather confused diplomatic brunch. Jace was offered 3 medals, 2 book deals, and a lifetime supply of chili noodles from New Seoul. He took only 1 medal and half the noodles. Valeth, meanwhile, declined every throne, every crown, every prophecy. She lived quietly in the Terran outskirts for a time, teaching fusion calculus to students who had no idea she once commanded an empire. Jace visited often, sometimes with waffles, sometimes just to hear her laugh. And once, sitting under stars that no longer stared back so coldly, she asked him, "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" he said, smiling. "The kiss, the bond, everything that came after." He leaned back, looked up at the sky, and said, "Nah, best galactic accident of my life." And far above, in a citadel no longer slumbering, the stars twinkled, just once, as if they too had learned how to laugh.